It's important for the Senate to listen to both sides, as it's been doing, I think, with great dignity and respect. But those who believe they want to have witnesses, in fact, some of them are the same people who decided previously they didn't want to have witnesses. I'm not a lawyer. I have a master's degree in business, but one of the things that I've found curious about all this is the House managers, I think from my rudimentary reading of the Constitution, have dramatically changed the role of the House in the impeachment process. They say that their role was merely accusatory. It was not at all. They have the same burden to meet as does the Senate. They say they were merely accusatory in their function in order to justify not having called witnesses themselves, and in order to justify now their desire to have the Senate hear witnesses. But I mean, they are clearly mistaken in that assumption, and I hope that we get to the point, perhaps after the next couple of days of presentation, where the members of the Senate would collectively decide that we have a complete record and we don't need to hear witnesses, and we can move forward and get this behind us.
I think there's only two reasons for the Republicans to want to have witnesses, clearly. One is to drag this out in the hopes that the American people's collective judgment on this will change. The American people have been very clear on how they feel about this. So they hope that just the mere presence of this day after day will get people so disgusted that they change their whole view of this matter. And second, that there'll be something unexpected that happens in with one of these witnesses, and it just drags it on. I really think that the vote to call witnesses will be a vote on who the impeachment party is. And I think if it comes down on partisan lines, which it probably will for the most part, the Republicans will go into the year 2000 as being the party of impeachment. And they will have dragged this thing on and on and on without any end in sight. Because as Byron has pointed out, you have one witness, they say something, it means you got to call a new witness. And then what about that new witness, and what did he say? And so it just goes on and on. If it is on partisan lines, I'm not saying it will be, but if it comes out on partisan lines and the Republicans vote for witnesses, the Democrats for the most part don't, I think the message to the people is they know the political party that wants to drag this on, and they will have to pay the price for that. I hope it won't turn out that way. I hope after they hear this side and get their questions answered, we'll all agree that we don't need to call witnesses.
Along those lines, is there any indication after today that you could get 6 votes from the Republican side to dismiss?
I don't have any idea. I haven't discussed it with them.
And what about the motion to dismiss? Do you think Democrats will stay together on that?
I don't know.
We
haven't had test votes or anything.
The one thing that is interesting about this is you don't find members of the Senate on break going back to the cloakroom talking about how they might or might not vote on these issues. That's not part of the discussion. And I think most members probably on both sides of the political aisle are keeping fairly close counsel on this. However, the public statements made to date lead me to believe that it is almost inevitable that we will probably have a vote to call witnesses. If that's the case, I think this will be a very long trial, and I don't think that's in this country's best interest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carolyn, did you want to ask?
Senator Dorgan noting that he is not a lawyer. I'm not, but Roger Cossack and Greta Van Susteren are, and when we come back, we'll hear from them.
Tonight, Bill Clinton gives his State of the Union address. Will his speech impact the impeachment trial and the future of his presidency? The State of the Union address, tonight on CNN.
There's things that local cable provided, the local news, that I just couldn't get on satellite.
I don't like the dish because I can't get local. Then we don't have the local channels.
No local channels.
We were both born and raised here, and we like to be involved with our local community and know what's happening. And with satellite, we sort of got away from that local connection.
Falcon Cable, your access to entertainment, information, and beyond.
Since 1982, Chiefs RV has been offering some of the best lines of RVs in the industry. Right now, Chiefs RV prices are reduced on all 98 models to make room for introductory prices on new 99 models arriving daily. 6 acres of inventory to choose from. Chiefs RV is also the Northwest Discount Center for Fleetwood Terry. A professional, knowledgeable sales staff is dedicated to help you select the perfect RV for you and your family, and skilled certified technicians to back it up. Come see us today and we'll make you a happy camper. Chiefs RV on North 28th in Pasco.
Reaction to the State of the Union on Larry King Live tonight.
How do I look? I look? How do I look?
Very good. I must say, I'm amazed.
I am a very stylish girl.
The new Volvo S80. My goodness.
A very stylish girl.
Protect the body, ignite the soul.
I work out to keep my body in shape. To help keep my mind sharp, I take new Quantera Ginkgo biloba. It helps me concentrate, maintain focus. Why Quantera? All ginkgos aren't the same. The patented Quantera extract was proven safe and effective by doctors in extensive clinical trials. And it increases oxygen supply to the brain. With new Quantera mental sharpness, I feel my best, naturally. If it's not clinically proven, it's not Quantera.
Another one of the Republican House managers reacting now to Charles Ruff's presentation. This is Lindsey Graham of South Carolina.
Jury. So if you can use your common sense and you can put the whole record together, I think it was a good presentation that didn't make the point that logic and common sense would allow to be made.
What about the possibility of some of your Democratic colleagues on the committee coming over to serve as on the defense team?
That's certainly up to the Senate, and if they come over to challenge the fairness of the House and start trying the House, that reinforces my view we've done a lot of damage here, and the facts are not the best friend of the president, so you try somebody else. If that's their purpose, then I think that shows that we've made a lot of inroads in the Senate because they've got to talk about somebody else.
The Senate Democrats made a big deal out of the time of the judge's order on December 11th.
Let me tell you, yeah, that's a good cut and paste analogy. The 11th is the day that she technically legally becomes a witness. On the 5th and the 7th time frame, there's discussions about her being on the witness list. So the knowledge that she may be a witness is had before the legal ruling takes effect, and that is a cut and paste event. True, she is not legally a witness till the judge says so. The question is, did the White House have knowledge that she would be a witness, and did they kick in at that point in time a game plan to try to get her out of town or try to get her to be friendly to the president? And I think it's clear from all the conduct between the 5th and the 11th that that's exactly what they were planning.
But their point was that the Jordan meeting was in the morning, the judge's order wasn't until the evening.
The point...
So how could the judge's order have triggered the Jordan meeting?
But what I'm saying is that the knowledge about her being a witness and the need to get her a job and get her out of town was understood as a problem before the 11th. So it's not, the need didn't come up on the 11th, the need came up when they realized that she may be a witness, which occurred before the 11th. So they're looking at the order of the judge, the technical order of the judge, to say there was no activity consistent with trying to get her a job before the 11th. Well, that's technically true, but the knowledge of her being a witness was on the 5th and the 7th time period, and they had ample knowledge then that they had a problem with Monica Lewinsky, and they went from kind of putting her off to a major league effort to get her a job that I think any intern in this town or any federal employee would love to have happen in their case.
How much do you think the president's going to get tonight?
Republican Representative Lindsey Graham, one of the House managers, going to the point Charles Ruff made today, that on that fateful day, December 11th, 1997, the White House, according to Ruff, did not learn about Judge Wright's ruling that other women the president might have had a relationship with could be deposed until late in the day. And that, again, in Ruff's argument, in the case that Ruff presented, could not have been the reason that the White House that day accelerated the effort to get Monica Lewinsky a job. At this point, I want to bring in our legal analyst, Greta Van Susteren and Roger Kosek. Greta, I was going to ask you generally how you think Charles Ruff did today, but let me just stick with this point that Lindsey Graham is making here, that whether or not the White House knew that Judge Wright was going to rule the way she did until late in the day, they still knew that this might happen. And that was enough of a reason to trigger their going full out to try to get Monica Lewinsky employed.
You know, perhaps that's true, Judy, but the point that Chuck Ruff was making throughout his argument is that different people may draw different inferences from what apparently are the facts. And the mere fact that there may be an inference that someone may think is sinister doesn't necessarily mean that it was indeed sinister. What Chuck Ruff was attempting to do was to provoke this United States Senate into thinking about the facts. They've now heard several days of the managers. He was trying to turn it around, not so much that they believe everything he said, but to start looking at the facts. He knows that many of them are lawyers, and in fact, at one time, he pointed out that that even the United States Supreme Court on the issue of perjury recognizes that sometimes two people can have very different recollections of the fact. That, I think, was the game plan today for Chuck Ruff.
Bob Franken, you have a question.
Well, as a matter of fact, I wanted to talk about what the purpose of the House managers is. You are going to now hear for a few days the unfettered White House description of what was going on. The House managers have made it clear they are going to respond and make a factual argument. They are saying that Charles Ruff tried to make the argument that the record shows that there was no knowledge of Monica Lewinsky's possibility as a witness until after Vernon Jordan was on a plane. What the House managers have done is to say, wait a minute, there is every indication that there was knowledge of that. Judy?
That's right, Bob, and that appeared to be what Lindsey Graham was trying to do just a few minutes ago. Roger, overall, how effective was Charles Ruff today?
You know, I think he was very effective, and I think the reason he was effective is because, you know, you can say that perhaps he wasn't exciting and he didn't really capture the spirit. But you know, there's a certain, at least to me, appeal to someone who methodically goes through the facts and brings out the point of saying, look, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a way you can view it. But you know, Judy, the thing that I think captured me the most today was the fact of, what a trial. I mean, here's a trial in which after each day the jury comes out and talks it over with the television cameras and tells you what they're thinking. Then the other side, the prosecutors, tells you what they're thinking. And it's unlike any trial I've ever seen in my life. And you know, you wonder about the framers of the Constitution when they put this system together. Obviously, they didn't know about television and mass media. And you wonder if they had any idea that 200 years down the road it would be conducted like this, if they would change some of the rules.
It makes you wonder if the country would be here if they'd had cameras back then, too. Yeah. All right, Roger and Greta, and we'll be talking to you a little bit later. Bernie.
And from the Senate, Vermont Democrat Patrick Leahy joins us now. Senator?
Good to be with you.
Good to have you. What were your thoughts as Mr. Ruff concluded today?
I was taken with it very, very much. I'll go back to the transcript. I was making some notes as I went through to look for different parts. I'm a former prosecutor, and the way he presented it appealed a great deal to me. He went very dispassionately, fact after fact, point of law after point of law, tying the two together and tying them to specific parts of the record. I think that was extremely important. I noticed a couple of times he said, now, those of you who've been prosecutors, and I saw several heads on both sides of the aisle nodding in assent with him. He knows, for example, that a prosecutor has the responsibility not just to bring out information to convict, but all information that sheds a good light on the person they're charging. And I think he made it very clear that the House had not done that.
California Democrat Barbara Boxer a short while ago here said that there are two reasons Republicans want witnesses. One, to drag this out, and two, if there are witnesses, the hope that there'll be something unexpected that will happen. You agree with that?
Well, on the first, if it's being done to drag it out, it would. I mean, we could talk about several months it'd be dragged out, and I think the American people feel there was a 60,000-page record. We ought to be able to wrap it up in the next week or so, not several months from now. But the idea that somehow there'd be a surprise witness, if that's what they want, they've been watching too many reruns of Perry Mason. This is not a case where somebody's going to suddenly come jumping off the gallery and say, wait a minute, I did it, I'm the guilty person, you've broken me down. That's not going to happen. You're not going to see anything with a witness that is any different than the arguments you've been hearing for several days.
Well, I asked that question as a preamble to something that Senate Majority Leader Trent Lott told network news anchors this morning over coffee in his office. Judy Woodruff and I were there along with some other anchors. He said at one point, we, meaning the senators, he said, we can control and focus what the witnesses, would testify to. If that is so, why all of the argument?
Well, except to this extent. technically that's true, except there's 100 senators who can do that. 100 senators can submit questions, as well as the managers. Now, when you try to move 100 senators around, it's like trying to transport bullfrogs in a wheelbarrow. It's a very, very difficult thing to do.